You don't take a graveyard shift job in the middle of the Chihuahuan Desert because your life is going according to plan. You take it because your bank account is overdrawn, your landlord is threatening to change the locks, and the transmission on your 2008 Ford F-150 just gave up the ghost 3 miles outside of White City. I needed cash, fast, and I needed enough of it to disappear for a while. That's when I saw the flyer taped to the inside of a bathroom stall at a truck stop off Highway 62. It didn't look official. It wasn't on National Park Service letterhead. It was just a plain white sheet of paper, the corners curling from the humidity, with bold black text that looked like it had been hammered out on a typewriter from the 1950s. Subterranean Logistics and Preservation. Position: Night Watch Private Tour Guide. Location: Carlsbad Caverns System, Deep Sector. Pay: $3,000 a week. Cash. Requirements: no history of claustrophobia, no immediate family, must be comfortable with absolute silence. I stared at that flyer for 5 minutes. $3,000 a week. That is life-changing money for a guy who was currently debating sleeping in his broken-down truck. I ripped the tab with the phone number off the bottom. I called it before I even washed my hands. The interview wasn't an interview. It was a vibe check. I met a man named Mr. Calloway in the back of a diner in Carlsbad proper. He looked like he had been made out of beef jerky and old leather. He didn't ask about my resume. He didn't ask about my customer service skills. He asked if I had good night vision. He asked if I believed in ghosts. When I said no, he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It looked like the skin around his mouth was about to tear. He hired me on the spot. He gave me a thick black binder and a heavy brass key. He told me to show up at the employee service entrance, not the main visitor center, at 2200 hours sharp. Driving up into the Guadalupe Mountains at night is an experience in itself. The desert doesn't sleep. It just holds its breath. The darkness out here is heavy. It presses against the windshield. There are no streetlights, just the endless expanse of scrub brush and cactus, and the feeling that something tall and pale is watching you from the ridgeline. I pulled my truck into the designated lot. It was empty, save for a single government-issue SUV that looked like it hadn't moved in a decade. The wind was howling through the canyon, a low, mournful sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. I grabbed the binder Calloway gave me and clicked on my flashlight. I was expecting a security guard booth, maybe a heavy gate. Instead, there was just a steel door embedded directly into the rock face, separate from the main cave entrance tourists use. The key fit with a satisfying heavy clunk. The air that hit me when I opened that door was ancient. You know that smell. Damp earth, guano, and ozone. The smell of a place that hasn't seen the sun in a million years. It was cold, too. A wet, seeping cold that cut right through my denim jacket. I stepped inside and locked the door behind me. I was standing in a small, concrete antechamber. A single fluorescent bulb buzzed overhead, flickering with a wither that made my eyes hurt. On a metal desk in the center of the room sat a radio, a heavy-duty flashlight, and a laminated sheet of paper. I sat down and opened the black binder. I figured it was standard HR stuff. Sexual harassment policies, emergency exits, how to use the freight elevator. It wasn't. The first page was handwritten. The ink was pressed deep into the paper, like the person writing it was angry or terrified. It just said, "Read the rules. Memorize the rules. They are not negotiable." I turned the page. Section 1. General Conduct for Night Watch. Rule 1. The cave system is larger than the maps indicate. The maps provided to the public cover approximately 10% of the explorable area. Do not stray from the marked blue path unless you have received a direct order via the radio from dispatch. If you see a path that isn't on your map, do not look down it for more than 5 seconds. The geography is fluid in the lower levels. If you stare, the tunnel notices you. Rule 2. Your shift is from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
During this time, you may encounter tourists. This is impossible, as the park is closed. If you see a family of 4, Typically, a father, mother, and 2 children wearing outdated clothing from the late 90s. Do not approach them. Do not ask for their tickets. Walk past them, eyes forward. If the father asks for directions to the big room, tell him it is closed for renovations. If he asks where the exit is, tell him you don't know. Never tell them where the exit is. They aren't allowed to leave. Rule 3. You will hear your name called. The acoustics in the cavern are strange. Sound carries for miles and distorts. Sometimes the dripping water sounds like syllables. If you hear a voice that sounds exactly like your mother calling you from deeper in the cave, turn off your flashlight immediately. Count to 30 in your head. Do not turn the light back on until the crying stops. Rule 4. There is a formation in the Queen's chamber that looks remarkably like a weeping woman. It is a stalagmite. It is made of rock. It does not move. If you enter the Queen's chamber and the formation is facing you, leave the room slowly. Do not turn your back on it. Back out the way you came and lock the gate. Log it as a positioning error in your daily report. Do not return to the Queen's chamber for the rest of the week. Rule 5. Flashlights are mandatory. You have been provided with a military-grade tactical light. Carry spare batteries.
If your light dies, you have exactly 10 seconds to replace the batteries. If you cannot replace them in 10 seconds, drop to the ground and curl into a ball. Cover your neck with your hands. Stay perfectly still. Do not scream. The things that live in the dark hunt by vibration and fear. If you are silent, they might mistake you for a rock. If you scream, you are food. Rule 6. Regarding the Pale Rangers. You may see other park rangers down here. Real NPS rangers wear olive green uniforms. The entities that mimic them wear uniforms that are a slightly desaturated gray. Their faces will be smooth, like unfinished clay. If a gray ranger approaches you and asks for a report, hand them a blank piece of paper. They cannot read, but they appreciate the bureaucracy. If you speak to them, do not make eye contact. Their eyes are not eyes. Rule 7. The elevators are for emergencies only. However, if the elevator doors open on their own when you walk past, do not look inside. There is no elevator car. It is a straight drop to the aquifer. Sometimes something tries to climb up the cables. If you hear wet slapping sounds coming from the shaft, press the emergency seal button on the wall and run. Rule 8. If you find a discarded backpack, camera, or shoe, do not touch it. These are offerings. Taking them is considered theft. The original owners are likely still nearby, and they have changed. They are very possessive of what little they have left. Rule 9. At 3 a.m., the temperature in the cave will drop 20 degrees. This is normal. This is when the king's palace breathes. You will feel a wind coming from the lower depths that smells like copper and ozone. Do not breathe this air deeply. It causes hallucinations. Cover your mouth and nose with the provided filtration mask until the temperature stabilizes. Rule 10. If you encounter a tour group consisting entirely of mannequins standing perfectly still in the middle of a walkway, check your watch. If your watch has stopped, you have crossed into a null zone. You must knock one of the mannequins over. It doesn't matter which one. The act of violence resets the local reality. Apologize to it, then run until your watch starts ticking again. I read the list twice. My hands were shaking. This had to be a joke, right? Hazing for the new guy? Just a way to scare off the weaklings? I looked at the radio on the desk. It was a heavy Motorola brick. Suddenly, static burst from the speaker, loud enough to make me jump. Control to new guy, a voice cackled. It sounded bored, tired. Radio check, over. I grabbed the handset, pressing the button. This is the new guy. I read the binder. Is this for real? There was a pause, a long one. Then the voice came back, stripped of any humor. Look at the monitor, kid. I looked up. There was a bank of CCTV screens I hadn't noticed before, tucked into the shadows of the upper shelf. Most were showing black and white views of empty caverns. But Screen 4 showed the main walkway of the big room. Standing there, right in the center of the frame, was a family of 4. Dad in a windbreaker, Mom in a denim dress, 2 kids in oversized t-shirts. They were standing perfectly still, facing the camera. Their eyes were glowing white in the night vision. Rule number 2 is in effect, the radio crackled. Do not engage. Welcome to Carlsbad, kid. Your first round starts in 5 minutes. Don't forget your spare batteries. I looked at the screen. The father raised his hand and waved. I really need the money.
but as I strapped the flashlight to my belt and stared into the dark throat of the tunnel leading down, I started to wonder if $3,000 a week was enough to buy a new soul, because I had a feeling I wasn't leaving this place with mine intact. I took a breath, clicked my radio to my hip, and stepped into the dark.
The beam of my tactical light cut a sharp white cone through the gloom, illuminating the slick paved path that spiraled down into the mouth of the cave. The switchbacks of the natural entrance are steep, winding back and forth like a scar carved into the earth, and with every step I took, the temperature dropped. The air grew heavy, losing the scent of desert sage and replacing it with that cloying metallic musk of ancient wet rock. I kept my hand hovering near the radio, my thumb brushing the textured plastic of the talk button, but I didn't press it. The silence down here wasn't just an absence of noise, it was a physical weight. It pressed against my eardrums, filling the space where sound should be. My footsteps, heavy boots on damp asphalt, echoed too loudly, the sharp clack, clack, clack rebounding off the limestone walls and sounding disturbingly like someone following me, matching my pace perfectly, but staying just out of sight. Just echoes, I muttered to myself, just physics. I descended for what felt like an hour, though my watch said it had only been 20 minutes. The tunnel widened, the ceiling vaulting up into darkness so profound my light couldn't find the top. I was entering the main cavern system. According to the map I'd memorized from the binder, I was approaching the underground lunchroom. It's a surreal relic of the park's history, a literal cafeteria installed 750 feet underground in the 1920s.
I turned a corner, and there it was. It was the most unsettled I'd felt yet. In the stark, erratic beam of my flashlight, the lunchroom looked like a crime scene frozen in time. Rows of dusty picnic tables sat in the silence. The stainless steel counters of the concession stand gleamed with a dull, malevolent light. A vintage popcorn machine stood in the corner, filled with kernels that had likely rotted decades ago. But what stopped me cold was the easel set up right in the center of the path, blocking the way to the big room. It wasn't a standard park sign. It was a heavy, rusted tripod holding a dry erase board. A battery-powered lantern sat at its base, casting a weak yellow glow upward, illuminating the text written in frantic red marker. Attached to the board with a magnet was a set of laminated cards on a ring. The whiteboard simply read, Shift Variance, 11/04/2024. Read before proceeding. I approached slowly, sweeping my light left and right. Nothing moved among the picnic tables. I stepped up to the easel and flipped the first laminated card. It was a zone-specific protocol list. Apparently, the general rules in the binder were just the primer. These were the operational directives for tonight. My throat went dry as I read. Night Watch Protocol, Deep Sector 1. The concession stand. The cafeteria has been closed since 1998. However, you may smell fresh popcorn or brewing coffee. This is an olfactory lure. If you smell food, hold your breath and walk past the counter quickly. If you see a figure standing behind the register wearing a paper hat, do not acknowledge them. If they ask for your order, do not speak. Place a single penny on the counter and keep walking. If you do not have a penny, you must give them something personal. A button, a shoelace, or a lock of hair will suffice. Do not give them money. They don't know what it is anymore. 2. The payphones. There is a bank of silver payphones near the elevators. They are disconnected from the surface world. If phone 3 rings, answer it. The voice on the other end will be yours, speaking from 10 seconds in the future. It will tell you to run or to hide. Obey yourself immediately, without hesitation. If phone 1 or 2 rings, do not answer. That is not you. 3. The bottomless pit. The formation known as the bottomless pit is approximately 140 feet deep. Tonight, the barrier chain may be down. Do not approach the edge to fix it. We have reports that the darkness in the pit has risen to the rim. If you hear someone climbing up the limestone wall inside the pit, turn off your light and lay flat on the ground. The climber is blind. It will feel around for obstacles. If you are standing, it will find you. 4. The Hall of Giants. The giant stalagmites in this room are dormant, except for the giant dome. As you pass it, listen for a heartbeat. If the rock is pulsing, the area is biologically active.
Move quietly. Loud noises will cause the stalagmites to sweat an acidic compound.
If a drop hits your skin, do not wipe it off. Amputate the affected area of clothing immediately. If it touches skin, neutralize with the baking soda packet in your first aid kit. If you hear the rock inhale, run. 5. The doll. Somewhere on the path tonight you will find a porcelain doll with one eye missing. It moves when you aren't looking. It is harmless, but it is a snitch. It alerts the other things to your location. If you see it, turn it to face the wall. This confuses it. Do not damage the doll. Its mother is nearby, and she is very protective. 6. The Green Lake. The water in the Green Lake room is crystal clear. If you look into the water and see your reflection blinking when you are not, smash your flashlight lens. The reflection is trying to synchronize with you. If it succeeds, you will swap places. You will be trapped in the water, and it will take your shift. 7. Code Amber. If your radio emits the screeching tone of an Amber Alert, check your surroundings. You are no longer in the cave. You have walked into a backroom pocket. The walls will look like yellow wallpaper or damped carpet. Close your eyes. Spin around 3 times counterclockwise. Walk backward until your heels hit rock. Do not open your eyes until you smell guano again. I lowered the cards, my hand trembling slightly. This was insane. This was absolute madness.
Penny, I whispered, patting my pockets. Do I have a damn penny? I dug into my jeans, pushing past my car keys and a lighter, until my fingers brushed against the distinct smooth edge of a coin. I pulled it out. A 2014 Lincoln penny. Thank God. I looked up at the concession stand. The smell hit me first. Hot, buttered popcorn. It was so strong it made my mouth water, triggering a primal hunger I didn't know I had. Then came the smell of coffee, rich, dark roast. I shined my light toward the counter. Standing behind the stainless steel register, barely visible through the grime-streaked sneeze guard, was a shadow. It was shaped like a man, but the edges were fuzzy, like smoke trapped in a jar. It was wearing a white paper hat that looked brand new. It didn't have a face, just a smooth, pale surface where features should be. "Can I take your order?" The voice didn't come from the figure. It sounded like it was coming from inside my own ear, wet and whispery. I held my breath, just like the card said. I walked forward, my boots feeling like lead weights. The smell of the food was intoxicating, making my stomach cramp. I wanted to stop. I wanted to ask for a burger. I wanted to sit down at one of those dusty tables and rest. Don't speak. Don't speak. I reached the counter. The figure leaned forward slightly. The paper hat rustled. I slammed the penny down on the cold metal. Cling. The figure froze.
The faceless head tilted to the side, looking at the coin. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I walked past the counter, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, and hurried toward the dark maw of the big room. Behind me, I heard the cash register ding, then the sound of a drawer sliding open, and a voice, cheery, bright, and completely wrong, called out, "Order up." I didn't stop to verify the contents of the order. I didn't turn around to see if the shadow man was holding a tray of phantom food or if the burgers were made of something that used to be a tourist. I just walked. I walked with the stiff, forced casualness of someone trying to convince a stray dog not to bite, keeping my eyes locked on the cone of light my tactical flashlight cut through the darkness. The smell of popcorn lingered for an uncomfortably long time, clinging to my clothes like cigarette smoke before fading back into the oppressive, damp scent of the cave. I was entering the big room now. If you've never been to Carlsbad, you can't understand the scale of the big room. It isn't just a cave, it is a void inside the planet. The ceiling vaults hundreds of feet overhead, lost in shadows that even military-grade lumens can't pierce. The silence here is aggressive. It's not just a lack of noise, it's a vacuum that tries to suck the thoughts right out of your head. I checked my watch, 11:15 p.m. I had been down here less than an hour. The path leveled out, winding through a forest of limestone formations that looked like melted wax castles and frozen waterfalls. I was trying to keep my breathing steady, trying to remember the map, when I saw the elevators. They were set into a natural alcove, the steel doors gleaming dully in my peripheral vision. I remembered Rule 7 immediately. If the elevator doors open on their own, do not look inside. My boots crunched softly on the pavement. As I drew level with the shaft, The left elevator door slid open with a smooth pneumatic hiss. I didn't look. I swear to God I wanted to. It's human nature to look at movement, but the image of something climbing up the cables, wet and slapping against the walls, flashed in my mind. I fixed my eyes on a stalagmite to my right that looked like a stack of pancakes and kept walking. From the open elevator shaft behind me, a draft of cold air hit the back of my neck. It smelled like stagnant water and rot. And then, just past the elevators, I saw them. The payphones. 3 silver boxes mounted on a wooden board, relics from a time when people carried quarters instead of smartphones. They looked innocuous, boring even. But as I approached, the silence of the cavern was shattered. Ring. The sound was deafening in the stillness. It wasn't a digital trill. It was the harsh, mechanical clatter of an old physical bell being struck. I froze. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I shone my light on the phones. Phone 1 was silent. Phone 2 was silent. Phone 3 was vibrating on the hook. Ring. I remembered the card. If phone 3 rings, answer it. The voice on the other end will be yours. I stepped forward, my hand shaking so bad the flashlight beam danced across the rock face like a strobe light. I grabbed the cold metal receiver of phone 3 and brought it to my ear. "Hello," I whispered.
"Get down," the voice said. It was me. It was undeniably me. It was the exact pitch, the exact cadence, but breathless, terrified, speaking in a harsh whisper. "What?" I asked, stupidly. "Shut up and get down," the voice, my voice, hissed. "Behind the trash can to your left. Turn off the light. He's coming. Do it now." Click. The line went dead. I didn't think. I didn't process. I threw myself to the left, scrambling behind a heavy stone facade trash receptacle. I jammed my thumb into the power button of my flashlight, plunging the world into absolute, suffocating blackness. I curled into a ball, pressing my hands over my mouth to stifle the sound of my own ragged breathing. 10 seconds passed. Then I heard it. Footsteps. But they weren't the heavy clack of boots. They were soft, like bare feet slapping on wet tile. Slap, slap, slap. They were coming from the direction of the big room, moving toward the elevators. I squeezed my eyes shut, as if that would make me more invisible. The footsteps grew louder, closer. I could hear the friction of skin on stone. Then they stopped, right on the other side of the trash can. A smell wafted over me. It wasn't the smell of popcorn or ozone. It smelled like raw meat left out in the sun. I held my breath until my lungs burned. My heart was beating so loud I was sure the thing could hear it, a drum solo in the dark. A low, gurgling sound echoed, like someone trying to clear a throat full of water.
Then the footsteps started again. Slap, 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 moving away, toward the elevators. I stayed there for a full 2 minutes after the sound faded. When I finally clicked my light back on, the beam revealed nothing but the empty path and the silent payphones. I scrambled up, my legs feeling like jelly. "Okay," I muttered. "Okay, trust the rules, trust the protocols." I forced myself to move deeper into the cave. Next up was the Hall of Giants. The ceiling here dropped lower, and the path wound between massive columns that joined floor to ceiling. These weren't delicate formations. These were monolithic, ancient things that looked like the teeth of a leviathan. I kept my light focused tight. The giant dome, the card had said. Listen for a heartbeat. I saw the formation ahead. It was a massive mound of flowstone, glistening with moisture. It looked like a tumor growing out of the earth. As I got closer, I felt the vibration in the soles of my boots. Thump, thump. It was faint, but it was there. Thump. I slowed to a crawl, creeping past the rock. The sound was wet, organic. I shone my light on the surface of the giant dome. The rock wasn't just glistening, it was sweating. Thick, clear beads of liquid were oozing from the pores of the stone. A drop fell from an overhang, splashing onto the pavement inches from my left boot. Hiss! The asphalt bubbled and smoked where the liquid hit. Acid. If you hear the rock inhale,
Run. I held my breath again, tiptoeing past the ascetic splash zone. The vibration grew louder. Thump. Thump. It was faster now. Agitated. Suddenly, a sound filled the chamber. A long, rasping drag of air, like a massive lung inflating. The rock walls groaned. It was inhaling. I bolted. I didn't care about noise discipline anymore. I sprinted down the path, my boots pounding, ducking under stalactites and weaving through the maze of stone. Behind me, I heard a sound like a geyser erupting, a wet splat, followed by the sizzling hiss of gallons of acid hitting the floor where I had been standing 10 seconds ago. I didn't stop running until I reached the junction for the bottomless pit. I leaned against a cold limestone wall, gasping for air, checking my skin for burns. I was clean, terrified but clean. I shone my light ahead. The path hooked sharply to the right, skirting the edge of a gaping black hole in the floor of the cave. A stainless steel railing separated the walkway from the void, but the chain-link gate that usually allowed maintenance access was hanging open. I approached slowly. The pit is supposed to be 140 feet deep. Deep, but finite. But as I shone my light over the edge, the beam didn't hit a bottom. It just was swallowed by a thick, swirling darkness that looked more like ink than air. Slap. Drag. Scrape. The sound came from inside the pit. It was the sound of wet hands pulling a heavy weight up a rock face. Do not approach the edge.
If you hear someone climbing, turn off your light and lay flat. Not again, I whimpered, but I did it. I clicked off the light and dropped to the pavement, pressing my cheek against the cold, gritty asphalt. The darkness was total. Slap. Drag. Grunt. The climber was close. I could hear the strain in the exertion. Whatever it was heavy. A hand slapped onto the pavement mere inches from the railing, then another. The sound of a wet, heavy body hauling itself over the metal barrier and flopping onto the walkway. It was on the path. It was 10 feet away from me. I lay perfectly still. I tried to become a rock. I tried to become the floor. Sniff. The sound was sharp, wet. Sniff. Sniff. Help. The voice was ragged, sounding like vocal cords that had been shredded by gravel. It sounded like an old woman. Help me. I fell. It was a trap. The card said it was blind. It said it hunted by obstacles. If I stood up, I was an obstacle. If I lay flat, I was just uneven ground. Is anyone there? The voice changed pitch. It sounded deeper now, angry. I heard the thing shuffling forward. I felt the vibration of its movement. A cold, wet hand brushed against the top of my head. It felt like a dead fish. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. Don't flinch. Don't scream. The hand lingered on my hair. Then it moved on. The shuffling continued down the path, away from me. Hello, the voice called out, further away now.
It sounded like a child. Mommy? I waited until the voice faded into the distance before I dared to move. I scrambled up, clicked on my light, and hurried away from the pit, my entire body shaking with adrenaline tremors. The path twisted again, leading me toward the green lake. I rounded a corner and saw the bench. Sitting on the wooden bench facing the rock wall was a doll. It was an antique porcelain thing, wearing a faded Victorian dress that might have been blue 50 years ago. Its head was turned completely backward, facing the wall, just like the card had instructed. Wait, if you see it, turn it to face the wall. This confuses it. It was already facing the wall. I stopped. Had the previous shift done it? Or, as I watched, the doll's head slowly, with a grinding sound of ceramic on ceramic, rotated 180 degrees. It faced me. One eye socket was empty, a black hole in the pale porcelain face. The other eye was blue, glass, and incredibly realistic, and it was looking right at my flashlight. The painted red lips seemed to stretch into a wider smile. Check Rule 5. No, the card. Protocol 5. It moves when you aren't looking. I was looking at it and it moved. That wasn't good. That was a variance.
I stepped forward, my hand hovering over my belt. I didn't have a weapon, just a radio and a flashlight. "I'm supposed to turn you around," I said aloud. "Talking to a doll. This is my life now." The doll didn't move.
But I got the distinct impression that if I blinked, it would be on my neck. I walked up to it, keeping my eyes peeled wide, stinging from the dry cave air. I reached out. The porcelain was ice cold. I grabbed the doll by its shoulders. It felt heavy, dense, like it was filled with lead shot. "Sorry," I whispered. I spun it around to face the rock wall. Immediately, a high-pitched giggle echoed from somewhere deep in the tunnel ahead. Not from the doll, from further down. "Do not damage the doll. Its mother is nearby." I backed away slowly. "I didn't break it," I said to the darkness. "I was just following protocol." I turned and walked fast. The Green Lake was just ahead. The Green Lake room is usually one of the most beautiful spots in the cavern, a perfectly still pool of water reflecting the stalactites above, creating the illusion of an infinite city. Tonight, the water was dark. I approached the railing. The pool was glass smooth. If you look into the water and see your reflection blinking when you are not, I shouldn't look. I should just keep walking. But the path runs right alongside the pool. You can't help but see it in your peripheral vision. I caught a glimpse of myself in the water, my denim jacket, the flashlight in my hand, my face pale and sweaty. In the reflection, I was smiling, a wide, teeth-bearing rictus of a smile that stretched ear to ear. I wasn't smiling. My mouth was a tight line of terror. The reflection raised its hand. It wasn't holding a flashlight, it was holding a jagged rock. It brought the rock down on the glass surface of the water, my side of the mirror. "Smashed your flashlight lens." I didn't hesitate. The reflection was trying to break through. I slammed the face of my tactical light against the metal railing. Crack! The heavy glass lens shattered. The bulb flickered but stayed on, the beam now casting jagged, fractured shadows that looked like claws reaching out from the center of the light. I looked back at the water. The reflection was gone. The water was rippling violently, as if something large had just thrashed beneath the surface. "One more," I panted. Just survive the shift." I checked my watch. 2:58 a.m. Wait, my blood ran cold. Rule 9. At 3 a.m., the temperature in the cave will drop 20 degrees. Do not breathe this air deeply. I had 2 minutes to get my mask on. I fumbled with the pouch on my belt where the N95 filtration mask was stored. My fingers were numb and clumsy. That's when the radio on my hips screamed. Screech! It wasn't static. It was the specific, dissonant emergency broadcast tone of an Amber Alert. My stomach dropped through the floor. Zone Specific Protocol 7, Code Amber. If your radio emits the screeching tone, you are no longer in the cave. I looked up from my belt. The stalactites were gone. The paved path was gone. The darkness was gone. I was standing in a hallway. The walls were covered in yellow, mono-yellow wallpaper that peeled at the corners. The floor was damp, moist carpet that smelled like old mildew. The buzzing of fluorescent lights overhead was maddeningly loud. There were no exits, just an endless maze of yellow hallways. I stopped breathing. The panic rose in my throat like bile. The back rooms. I had clipped out of reality. Close your eyes. I slammed my eyes shut. Spin around 3 times counterclockwise. 1. The carpet squelched under my boots. 2. The smell of mildew was overwhelming. 3. Walk backward until your heels hit rock. I took a step back. Soft carpet. Another step. Soft carpet. My heart was thundering. What if I walked backward forever? What if I fell into a pit? "Hey," a voice shouted from somewhere in the yellow maze. "Hey, you, turn around." It sounded like Mr. Calloway, but it was distorted, digital. "Do not open your eyes." I took another step back. Carpet. Another. Clack. My heel hit stone. Hard, unyielding stone. I kept my eyes shut. I took a deep sniff. Mildew, guano. The sharp ammonia tang of bat droppings. I opened my eyes. I was back on the path. The yellow walls were gone, replaced by the comforting, terrifying darkness of the cave. The radio was silent.
I collapsed against the cave wall, sliding down until I hit the ground. I checked my watch, 3:01 a.m.
A freezing wind blasted through the tunnel, carrying the metallic scent of copper and ozone. The temperature plummeted instantly. My breath plumed in the fractured light of my broken flashlight. The king's palace was breathing. I jammed the mask onto my face, cinching the straps tight, and curled into a ball as the hallucinogenic wind howled over me, carrying whispers of things that had no business existing in a sane world. I had survived the variance, but the shift wasn't over. As the wind died down and the temperature began to stabilize, I stood up. My legs felt like lead. I looked down the path, deeper into the dark. The radio crackled again. "Control to new guy," the bored voice returned. "Nice work on the lens. Most people hesitate. Now proceed to the king's palace. We have a situation with the throne." I keyed the mic, my hand trembling. "What kind of situation?" "Someone's sitting in it," Control replied, "and they're asking for you by name."
I stared at the radio, waiting for the punchline, waiting for Control to tell me he was messing with the rookie, that this was all just elaborate theater involving speakers hidden in the rocks and a guy in a costume. But the radio remained silent, save for the rhythmic, low-frequency hum of the cave itself. "Who?" I whispered, my voice cracking. "Who is asking for me?" "Just get in there," Control sighed, sounding resigned. "And whatever you do, don't accept any gifts. Protocol says you have to reject them politely but firmly. If you take anything from the king's palace, you belong to the court." The radio clicked off. I was alone again. Well, not alone. Never alone down here. I pushed off the wall, my legs burning with lactic acid and fear. The fractured lens of my flashlight cast a kaleidoscope of jagged light against the limestone walls, making the shadows look like they were spasming. Every step toward the king's palace felt like walking underwater. The entrance to the palace is majestic. Even in the terror, you can't help but appreciate the geology. Draperies of rock hang from the ceiling like frozen curtains, translucent and delicate. But tonight, the stone curtains didn't look like rock. In the broken light, they looked like dried skin stretched over bone. I stepped into the main chamber. It was colder here. Not the wet cold of the tunnel, but a dry, sterile freeze that made the inside of my nose sting. I swept my light across the room.
The throne is a famous formation, a massive stalagmite with a natural seat carved into its base by millennia of dripping water. I aimed the beam at the center of the room. My heart stopped. It didn't stutter, it just ceased to function for a full 3 seconds. Someone was sitting there. It was a woman. She was small, hunched over, wearing a floral print dress that I hadn't seen in 10 years. She had her hands folded primly in her lap. Her hair was gray, permed tight, smelling faintly of hairspray and lavender even from 20 feet away. "Mom?" I choked out. The figure didn't move. Rule 3. My brain screamed the text from the binder. If you hear a voice that sounds exactly like your mother calling you, turn off your flashlight immediately. Count to 30. But she wasn't calling me. She was just sitting there. And Rule 3 said if I hear a voice, it didn't say what to do if I saw her. The loophole paralyzed me. I stood rooted to the spot, the jagged beam of my light fixed on her face. Slowly, painfully slowly, she raised her head. Her eyes were gone. In their place were 2 smooth patches of skin, like the eyelids had been fused shut and then painted over with foundation. "David," she said. It was her voice. It was the voice that read me bedtime stories. It was the voice that yelled at me when I crashed my first car. It was the voice I hadn't heard since the funeral. "You look tired, baby," she crooned. The sound didn't come from her mouth. Her mouth didn't move. The sound came from the rocks around her, vibrating through the floor, echoing from the ceiling. It was surround sound grief. "Turn off the light," I whispered to myself. "Count to 30. Just do it." My thumb hovered over the switch. "Don't you dare," the thing on the throne said. The voice dropped an octave, becoming harsh, gravelly. "Don't you turn your back on your mother. Look at me." I couldn't move my thumb.
The fear was a physical restraint, locking my muscles. I was staring. I was engaging. The thing stood up. It moved with a jerky, stop-motion animation, limbs snagging into place with wet popping sounds. "I have a gift for you, David," it said, extending a hand. The fingers were too long. They had too many joints. "Come here. Come sit with me." Protocol: do not accept any gifts. "No," I squeaked. "Come here." The voice roared, shaking dust loose from the ceiling. The thing lunged. Panic broke the paralysis. I didn't turn off the light. I didn't count to 30. I spun on my heel and ran. I ran blind, screaming, the fractured beam of my flashlight swinging wildly. I didn't check the map. I didn't look for the blue reflective markers that designated the safe path. I just needed to get away from the thing wearing my mother's dress. I scrambled up a slope, my boots sliding on loose gravel. I ducked under a low overhang, scraping my back against the rock, and burst into a narrow tunnel I didn't recognize. It was quiet here. The roaring voice of the mother faded instantly, replaced by a thick, heavy silence. I leaned against the wall, gasping, checking behind me. Nothing, just darkness. I turned forward, aiming my light down the tunnel. It wasn't limestone. The walls here were smooth, dark basalt, perfectly round, like a pipe. And it was straight, perfectly, mathematically straight, stretching on for what looked like miles. I stared at it. I tried to make sense of it. This wasn't on the map. The map showed the king's palace as a dead-end loop. I kept staring. The geometry was mesmerizing. The way the shadows played on the smooth walls pulled my eyes in. It felt welcoming. It felt like a way out. "Where does this go?" I muttered, squinting into the gloom. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds. A wet, slurping sound came from the walls. Rule 1. If you see a path that isn't on your map, do not look down it for more than 5 seconds. If you stare, the tunnel notices you. I froze. The smooth walls of the tunnel rippled. It wasn't rock. It was muscle. The tunnel contracted. A gust of warm, rancid wind blew into my face from deep within the passage. It smelled of digested meat. The tunnel wasn't a tunnel. It was a throat, and I had been staring right down the gullet long enough to trigger the swallow reflex. The floor beneath my feet softened, turning spongy. The walls began to pulse, closing in.
"Oh God," I whispered. I turned to run back the way I came, but the opening I had crawled through was gone, sealed shut with a wall of gray, quivering flesh. I was inside it. The radio on my hip crackled to life, but it wasn't the bored voice of control. It was a frantic, high-pitched screaming. Eyes down! You looked too long! It knows you're there! Run!" The floor tilted. The entire passage lurched downward at a 45-degree angle. I slid. I clawed at the walls, but my fingernails just sank into the wet, rubbery surface. I was sliding down the esophagus of the earth, plunging deeper into a section of the map that didn't exist. "Control!" I screamed into the radio, sliding faster, the friction burning my jeans. "I broke a rule. I broke Rule 1. How do I fix it?" Static. Then Control's voice cut through, breathless and terrified. "You can't fix it. You have to purge. Make it sick." "What?" "Make it vomit you out. Use the flare. Do you have the emergency flare in your pack?" I didn't even know I had a pack. I reached around to the small lumbar pack attached to my belt, something I hadn't checked since I put the uniform on. My fingers fumbled with the zipper as I picked up speed, the darkness rushing up to meet me. I felt a hard cylindrical tube. "I got it! Light it!" Control screamed. "Light it and drop it! Don't hold on to it!" I ripped the cap off the flare. I struck the igniter against the rough sole of my boot. Brilliant, blinding red light exploded in the narrow space. The magnesium burned hot, sizzling against the wet flesh of the tunnel floor. The reaction was instant. The entire world convulsed. The walls slammed together, crushing the air out of my lungs. A deafening roar, half seismic quake, half biological scream, shattered my eardrums. The floor bucked violently upward. I was thrown into the air, weightless for a split second, bathed in red smoke and burning magnesium.
Then, a massive wave of clear, viscous slime crashed into me from above, pushing me backward, upward, against gravity. It was heaving. I was being regurgitated. I tumbled through the slime, blinded, suffocating, battering against the soft walls as the tunnel violently expelled the irritant. I couldn't breathe. The slime was in my mouth, my nose. Then, suddenly, hard impact. My shoulder slammed into unforgiving rock. I rolled, coughing up bile and clear goo, gasping for air. I was lying on cold, wet asphalt. The red flare was sputtering out a few feet away, dying in a puddle of slime. I scrambled back, wiping the muck from my eyes. I was back on the blue path. The throat was gone. There was just a solid wall of limestone where the tunnel had been, looking innocent and ancient. I lay there, shaking, covered in the stomach lining of the cave system. "Control?" I wheezed, grabbing the radio. I'm out." Silence. Then a new voice came over the radio. It wasn't Control.
It wasn't the mother. It was a soft, melodious humming, a lullaby, and it was coming from the flare. I looked at the dying red light. Standing over it, illuminated by the fading embers, was a pair of legs. They were wearing olive green trousers, NPS standard issue. I looked up. Rule 6. Real NPS Rangers wear olive green uniforms. The entities that mimic them wear uniforms that are a slightly desaturated gray. These pants were green. Vibrant, undeniable green. A real ranger? Down here? "Hey," I croaked. "Hey, I need help. I just fell down a..." The figure squatted down. The face came into the dying red light. It was a man. He had a kind face, a mustache, and warm brown eyes. He smiled. "Rough first night, huh?" he asked. His voice was normal, human. I nearly sobbed with relief. "You have no idea. This place, the rules, I almost died." He nodded sympathetically, reaching out a hand to help me up. "Yeah, the deep sector is tricky. Calloway throws the new guys in the deep end, but you made it." I took his hand. It was warm, calloused, real. He pulled me to my feet. "I'm Ranger Miller," he said. "I'm the swing shift supervisor. I'll walk you back to the elevator. Shift's almost over anyway." "Thank God," I breathed. I need to get out of here." "I know," Miller said, patting my shoulder. He started walking up the path, motioning for me to follow. "Come on, we'll take the shortcut through the Hall of the White Giant." I took a step to follow him. Then I stopped. I looked at his back, the olive green shirt, the calm demeanor. Rule 6. The entities that mimic them wear uniforms that are a slightly desaturated gray. His uniform was green. He was safe. But then I remembered something else, something from the very beginning of the binder. Requirements: no immediate family, must be comfortable with absolute silence. And something Calloway had said in the diner. Requirements: no history of claustrophobia. And Rule 2: you may see other park rangers down here. Wait. I replayed the interaction in my head. I'm Ranger Miller. I'm the swing shift supervisor. I looked down at the radio in my hand. "Control?" I whispered, pressing the button, watching Ranger Miller walk away. "Do we have a Ranger Miller on staff?" The radio static hissed. "New guy," Control said, his voice tight. "Listen to me very carefully. There is no swing shift. There is no supervisor. And there hasn't been a Ranger Miller employed at Carlsbad since 1989. I looked up. Miller had stopped walking. He was standing about 30 feet away, his back to me. "Control?" I whispered, tears mixing with the slime on my face. "He's wearing green. The rules say green is safe." "The rules," Control said, "are a survival guide. They aren't a guarantee. And sometimes the things down there learn to do laundry." Ranger Miller slowly turned around. His warm brown eyes were gone. In fact, his entire face was sliding off, drooping like wet clay under heat, revealing a second gray face underneath. He smiled. His mouth was vertical.
"Are you coming, new guy?" the thing that wasn't Miller asked. "The elevator is just this way." I clicked off the radio. I gripped my shattered flashlight like a shiv. "No," I said, my voice trembling but loud. "I'm taking the long way." The thing's smile widened until it split its chin. "There is no long way anymore," it gurgled. "You stared at the tunnel. The geography is fluid now. Look at your feet." I looked down. The blue path markers were gone. The pavement was gone. I was standing on soft yellow carpet, and the smell of damp old mildew was back. I didn't wait for the thing that used to be Ranger Miller to finish its transformation. I didn't wait to see what lay behind the gray, sliding face or the vertical mouth. The moment the smell of mildew hit my nostrils, overriding the metallic tang of the cave, I turned and sprinted into the yellow void. The transition between the cavern and this place, this code amber pocket, was seamless and sickening. One second, my boots were scraping against ancient limestone. The next, they were sinking into moist, synthetic carpet that felt disturbingly like moss growing over rotting meat. The sound of the cave, that vast, echoing silence, was replaced instantly by the hum. It was the sound of 1,000 fluorescent tubes buzzing in angry unison, a sound that vibrated in my teeth and made my eyes water. "Control!" I screamed into the radio, not breaking my stride. "Code Amber! I'm in Code Amber, and the Miller thing is in here with me." Static washed over the line, but it wasn't the clean static of the surface world. It was distorted, layered with sounds that resembled weeping. "Run!" Control's voice cut through, sounding distant and tinny. "You have to break line of sight. The geometry in an amber pocket loops based on observation. If it sees you, the hallway never ends. Turn a corner, find a blind spot." I risked a glance over my shoulder. The hallway behind me was stretching. It was a physical sensation of vertigo, like looking through the wrong end of binoculars. Standing at the far end where the path I had come from should have been was Miller. But he wasn't running. He was pouring forward. His olive green uniform had fused with his gray skin, creating a mottled, fleshy carapace. He was on all fours now, his limbs broken and reset at impossible angles, scuttling across the carpet like a spider made of wet clay. His head, that split, vertical face, was bobbing rhythmically. "David," it gurgled, the voice wet and distorted. "I have your resume, David. You have gaps in your employment history. Let's discuss them." I took the first left turn I saw. The hallway was identical. Mono-yellow wallpaper, peeling at the baseboards to reveal black mold underneath. Ceiling tiles stained with brown water rings. No doors, no windows, just the endless, maddening yellow. I pushed my legs harder, my lungs burning. The air here was thick, humid, and tasted of stale cigarettes and despair. It was the smell of a waiting room where everyone has died waiting. Turn a corner, break line of sight. I took a right, then another left, then a sharp right. I was running in a zigzag pattern, trying to confuse the logic of the space. But every time I turned, I heard the slap-squelch slap of the Miller thing hitting the carpet behind me. It wasn't getting closer, but it wasn't falling behind. It was matching my pace perfectly, toying with me. "Control, I can't shake it," I yelled, my voice ragged. "It's tracking me."
"How does it know where I am?" "The carpet," Control shouted, panic finally cracking his board facade. "New guy, look at the carpet. It's tracking the pressure. Get off the floor." I looked down. Every time my boot hit the spongy yellow floor, a dark bruise bloomed in the fabric, spreading outward like ink in water. I was leaving a trail of black footprints that glowed faintly in the humming light. "Get off the floor?" I wheezed, hysteria bubbling in my throat. "Fly? You want me to learn how to fly, Control?" "The ceiling," Control snapped. "The drop ceiling. Find a maintenance hutch, or climb the walls. Just break contact with the ground." Ahead of me, the hallway terminated in a T-junction. I didn't have time to think. I didn't have time to question the physics of a nightmare. I sprinted toward the wall at the end of the T-junction. I planted my left boot on the peeling wallpaper, feeling the drywall crumble underneath, and launched myself upward. I grabbed the metal grid of the drop ceiling with both hands. The metal sliced into my palms, but I held on. With a grunt of effort that felt like it tore an abdominal muscle, I swung my legs up, kicking out a flimsy acoustic tile. It crumbled into dust. I hauled myself up into the crawlspace just as the Miller thing skidded around the corner.
I lay flat on the metal support beams, shivering, pressing my face into the dust and fiberglass insulation.
Below me, through the hole I had made, I could see the yellow hallway. The Miller thing stopped directly under the hole. From above, it looked even worse. Its spine was exposed, a ridge of gray bone protruding through the tattered green shirt. It was sniffing the carpet, tracing the black bruises my boots had left. It reached the spot where I had jumped. The footprints stopped. The creature froze. Its head snapped up, looking directly at the missing tile. I held my breath. I squeezed my eyes shut. Don't breathe. Don't move. Don't exist. David, it whispered. The voice was right below me. I know you're up there. The ceiling isn't zoned for occupancy. That's a violation. A long gray arm shot up through the hole, groping blindly. The fingers were 6 inches long, tipped with bone hooks. It swiped the air inches from my nose. I scrambled backward on the beams, trying to be silent, but the metal groaned under my weight. The creature shrieked, a sound like metal tearing, and began to tear at the ceiling tiles, ripping them down in great dusty chunks. It was climbing up. Control, I whispered into the radio, crawling frantically through the dark crawl space. It's coming up. Where do I go? North, Control said. Move north. There is no north in here, I hissed. It's all yellow. Follow the airflow, Control commanded. Feel for a draft.
The code amber pockets are parasites, the attached to the real world near HVAC systems or natural vents. Find the cold air. That's the seam. You have to cut your way out. I stopped for a microsecond. I closed my eyes, ignoring the sound of the Miller thing ripping apart the ceiling structure behind me. Heat, dust, stale air. There, a faint, ghostly whisper of a breeze on my left cheek. It was cold. It smelled of ozone and that guano. I crawled toward it. The crawl space was a nightmare of wires and ducts. I scrambled over them, skinning my knees, banging my head on low-hanging pipes. Behind me, the crashing sound of the creature's pursuit was getting louder. It was fast in the tight space. I could hear it scuttling along the beams, its bone hooks clicking against the metal. David, don't leave, it hissed, the voice echoing in the plenum space. We haven't discussed your benefits package. It includes dental and marrow extraction. I saw a heavy galvanized steel duct ahead. The cold air was coming from a seam where the duct met the outer wall of the crawl space. I pulled the shattered remains of my flashlight from my belt. The lens was gone, the bulb exposed and flickering, but the casing was heavy aluminum. I reached the duct. I hammered the flashlight against the sheet metal. Clang, clang, clang. Come on, I screamed, hitting it harder. The metal buckled but didn't break. Behind me, a gray hand clamped onto my ankle. The grip was crushing. I felt the bones in my ankle grind together. Gotcha, the Miller thing purred. I kicked, I thrashed. My other boot connected with its face, sinking into the soft, clay-like flesh. It felt like kicking a bucket of raw liver. The thing didn't let go. It pulled. I was sliding backward. I dug my fingernails into the insulation, but it was useless. I was being dragged back toward the vertical mouth. Control, I screamed. It's got me. The baking soda, Control barked. Protocol 4, the acid. Do you have the acid packet from the Hall of Giants? I didn't collect any. The battery, Control shouted. Your flashlight battery. It's lithium. Pierce it. I looked at the broken flashlight in my hand. The battery compartment was dented. The Miller thing was pulling me closer. I could smell its breath now, rotten meat and copier toner. I could see the rows of needle teeth inside the vertical slit of its mouth. I jammed the exposed end of the flashlight into the creature's gray arm, right where it gripped my ankle. I used the jagged edge of the broken casing like a chisel. Then I slammed the base of the flashlight with my free hand, driving the damaged battery into the wet flesh. I twisted it. A spark, then a sizzle. The lithium reacted with the moisture in the creature's body. Pop, hiss. Chemical fire erupted inside the creature's forearm. The Miller thing shrieked, a sound that wasn't human, wasn't animal, just pure frequency. It let go of my ankle, flailing its burning arm, smashing against the support beams. I didn't watch. I scrambled back to the duct. I hammered the metal with the empty flashlight casing, fueled by pure adrenaline terror. Clang, crunch. The seam split. A blast of freezing cave air hit my face. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever felt.
I squeezed my fingers into the gap and pulled. The sheet metal sliced my hands, but I tore it open, creating a hole just big enough for my shoulders. I dove through head first. For a second, I was falling. I hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. I tasted dirt. I smelled rock. I sat up, gasping, clutching my throbbing ankle. I was back. I was in a small circular chamber with natural limestone walls. The floor was covered in fine white dust. The silence was absolute. No humming, no yellow wallpaper. I checked my watch. The crystal was cracked, but the digital display was still working. 5:45 a.m. Control, I whispered, my voice trembling. I'm out. I think I'm in the spirit world room. The white dust. Copy that, new guy, Control replied. He sounded exhausted. You're in the ghost room. Good navigation. That's near the secondary exit. I slumped against the wall, laughing weakly. I made it. Holy hell, I made it. Not yet, Control said sharply. Check the door. I looked around.
There was a heavy iron gate blocking the only exit from the room. It was locked. Yeah, it's locked, I said. Do I have a key? No, Control said, but he does. Who? The warden, Control said. Rule 11. We didn't give you Rule 11 because most people don't survive long enough to need it. The ghost room is the holding cell. You can't leave until the warden lets you out. I stared at the gate. Beyond the bars, the tunnel stretched away into darkness. Okay, I said, standing up on my bad ankle. How do I ask him? You don't ask, Control said. You have to pay the toll. Do you have anything valuable? Not money, something that matters. I patted my pockets. My wallet? No, money was useless. My phone? Dead. The penny? Given to the popcorn man. I touched the collar of my denim jacket. Pinned to the inside was a small silver pin. It was an AA sobriety chip. 1 year. I swallowed hard. I had fought hard for that chip. It meant more to me than the truck, more than the job. Yeah, I whispered. I have something. Place it on the ground in front of the gate, Control instructed. Then turn around, face the back wall. Do not look at the warden. He hates being perceived. I unpinned the chip. My fingers shook. I placed the small silver circle on the dusty floor, just inside the bars. Done, I said. Turn around, Control commanded. Hands on the wall. Close your eyes. Wait for the sound of keys. I turned my back to the gate.
I pressed my forehead against the cold limestone. I squeezed my eyes shut. The silence stretched. 10 seconds. 20. Then I heard it. Heavy, dragging footsteps approaching from the tunnel. The sound of a large metal ring striking the bars. Clink. Jingle. A cold wind blew into the room, smelling of iron and old blood. I felt a presence behind me. Massive. Ancient. It sucked the heat out of the air. This is sufficient, a voice rumbled. It sounded like two tectonic plates grinding together. Click. Clack. The sound of a lock turning. Screech. The gate swung open. Go, the voice grumbled, before I change my mind. I didn't hesitate. I didn't look back. I kept my eyes fixed forward, walking out of the room, past the open gate, and into the tunnel. I could feel the warden watching me, a gaze that felt like a physical weight on my spine, but I didn't turn. I walked. The tunnel sloped upward. The air grew warmer. The smell of the desert, sagebrush and dust, began to mix with the cave air. I saw a faint gray light ahead. Daylight. I burst out of the employee service entrance, stumbling onto the asphalt of the parking lot. The sky in the east was bruising purple and orange. The sun was cresting the Guadalupe Mountains. I fell to my knees, breathing in the dry morning air. It tasted like freedom. My truck was still there, sitting exactly where I had left it. The government SUV was gone. I looked at my watch. 6:01 a.m. Control.
I keyed the radio one last time. I'm topside. Good job, new guy, Control said. Leave the radio and the binder in the lockbox by the door. Your payment is in the glove compartment of your truck. I stood up, wincing as my ankle protested. I walked to the steel door, dropped the radio and the black binder into the metal drop box and slammed it shut. I walked to my truck. I pulled the door handle. It was unlocked.
I opened the glove box. Sitting there, wrapped in a rubber band, was a stock of bills, hundreds. I counted them quickly. $3,000. And underneath the money, there was a fresh sheet of paper. I picked it up. It was typed on the same typewriter as the flyer. Subterranean Logistics and Preservation. Employee Performance Review. Satisfactory. Next shift, tomorrow, 2200 hours. Note, bring burn cream. The lower levels are heating up. I stared at the paper. I looked at the money. I looked at the sunrise over the desert. My transmission was blown. My landlord was calling. I had nowhere else to go. I put the money in my pocket. I crumpled the note and threw it on the floorboard. Tomorrow, I whispered to the empty desert. I climbed into the driver's seat and leaned my head back, closing my eyes. I could still smell the popcorn. I could still hear the buzzing of the yellow lights. I needed sleep, because tonight I had to go back down, and I had a feeling Rule 11 wasn't the last secret in that binder.
I didn't go home. I couldn't. Home is a studio apartment with a landlord who watches television too loud and a window that faces a brick wall. But right now, the idea of being in an enclosed space I didn't verify with a tactical light made my skin crawl. Besides, if the Miller thing had my resume, it had my address. I didn't know if the rules of the deep sector applied to the surface, but I wasn't going to bet my life on a zoning ordinance. I drove the F-150 into Carlsbad proper, the suspension groaning over every pothole, my eyes darting to the rearview mirror every 5 seconds. I wasn't looking for traffic. I was looking for gray skin and olive green uniforms. The morning sun was blinding, violent in its brightness, but it felt superficial, like a thin sheet of gold foil laid over a rotting carcass. I could still feel the cave. It was in my pores. The smell of ozone and ancient wet rock was stuck in the back of my throat, a phantom taste that even the stale coffee I bought at a drive-thru couldn't wash away. I pulled into the parking lot of a pharmacy on the edge of town. The automatic doors slid open with a hiss that sounded too much like the elevator in the big room, and I flinched, my hand dropping to my belt for a flashlight that wasn't there. Inside, the fluorescent lights were humming. Bzzzt. I froze in the entryway. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I looked at the floor. White tile, not yellow carpet.
I looked at the walls. Product displays, not peeling wallpaper. I forced myself to breathe. In, out. It's just a store. It's just electricity. I walked down the aisles, my boots leaving faint, dusty white footprints on the polished floor, residue from the ghost room. I grabbed 3 tubes of maximum strength lidocaine burn cream, a new heavy-duty flashlight, and a pack of AA batteries. I stared at the batteries for a long time. Lithium. I grabbed 2 more packs. When I got to the counter, the cashier, a teenage girl popping gum, stared at my face. "Rough night?" she asked, eyeing the grime and the gray slime dried on my jacket. "You have no idea," I muttered, placing the items on the belt. "That'll be $42.50. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the wad of cash from the glove box. The bills were crisp, cold to the touch. They felt heavier than paper should. I peeled off a $100 bill. It was an older print, the kind with the smaller portrait of Franklin, dating back to the 90s. The girl took it, holding it up to the light. "We don't see these old ones much anymore." "Yeah," I said, my voice hollow. "I found it in a cave." She laughed like it was a joke. I didn't smile. I took my change, grabbed the bag, and walked out without saying another word. I checked into a cheap motel off the highway, room 112, ground floor. The first thing I did was drag the dresser in front of the door.
Then I took the towels from the bathroom and taped them over the mirrors. I couldn't look at myself. I couldn't risk seeing a smile that wasn't mine, or a reflection holding a jagged rock. Rule 6 in the Green Lake had taught me that vanity was a liability. I stripped off the denim jacket and the jeans, throwing them into the corner like they were radioactive. My body was a map of the night's trauma. My knees were scraped raw from the crawl space. My palms were sliced from the sheet metal duct. But the worst was my ankle. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at where the Miller thing had grabbed me. It wasn't just a bruise. The skin was discolored, a dark necrotic purple in the shape of 4 long fingers. But inside the purple marks, the skin had turned hard. It looked like clay.
It felt cold to the touch, numb, as if the nerves had been deadened or replaced. I uncapped the burn cream and slathered it on thick. It didn't sting. It didn't feel like anything. I wrapped it in gauze, tight, trying to hide the evidence that a piece of me had been claimed by the yellow hallway. I lay back on the bed, staring at the popcorn ceiling. Popcorn. The smell hit me again. Phantom butter. Phantom salt. I rolled over and dry heaved into the trash can. I needed to sleep. I knew I needed to sleep. The note said the next shift was at 22 hours.
That gave me 14 hours to reset my brain, to convince myself that I was a human being and not just biomass waiting to be processed by a subterranean ecosystem. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the tunnel contracting. I saw the vertical mouth. I heard the sobbing of the woman on the throne. I grabbed the remote and turned on the TV, cranking the volume up. I needed noise. I needed human voices talking about mundane things, weather, sports, politics, anything to drown out the silence that was still ringing in my ears. I finally drifted off around noon, lulled by the sound of a game show. I didn't dream of the cave. That would have been too easy. I dreamt I was back in the pharmacy. I was walking down the aisle looking for the burn cream, but the aisle didn't end. The shelves stretched on forever, stocked with rows and rows of black binders. The fluorescent lights got louder and louder until they sounded like screaming. I turned to run, but my feet were stuck in the yellow carpet that had replaced the tile. I looked down and my ankle wasn't just bruised, it was gone. My leg ended in a stump of gray clay. And behind the counter, the teenage girl wasn't popping gum. She was peeling off her face. "Order up," she whispered. I woke up screaming, thrashing against the sheets, my hand scrabbling for the flashlight I had placed on the nightstand. I clicked it on. The beam cut through the dim motel room, dresser blocking the door.
Towels on the mirrors, TV playing a soap opera. Safe. I sat up, drenched in cold sweat, my heart racing so fast it felt like a hummingbird tapped in my chest. I looked at the digital clock on the bedside table. 9:15 p.m. The sun was down. The world was dark again. I felt a pull in my gut, a physical tug like a hook in my navel, dragging me toward the mountains. It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just the fear of eviction. It was something deeper. The cave had seen me. The tunnel had tasted me. And once you're in the system, you don't just clock out. You're just on a break. I got up and washed my face with cold water, avoiding the covered mirror. I dressed in fresh clothes, cargo pants this time, heavy canvas, and a long-sleeve flannel shirt. I laced my boots tight, wincing as the leather pressed against the gauze on my ankle. I checked my gear: new flashlight, spare batteries, burn cream, a bag of copper pennies I'd gotten from the bank, just in case I ran into the concession stand again. I walked out to the truck. The night air was cool, but to me it felt suffocatingly hot compared to the chill of the ghost room. I climbed into the cab and started the engine. The headlights swept across the parking lot, illuminating a stray cat near the dumpster. For a second, the cat's eyes glowed white. It stood on its hind legs and waved. I blinked, and it was just a cat again, scurrying away into the shadows. Hallucinations, I whispered. Just residue.
I backed out of the space and turned toward Highway 62. I'm writing this now on my phone using the motel's spotty Wi-Fi while I idle in the drive-thru of a burger joint, forcing myself to eat something before I go back. I need the calories. If you're reading this and you're ever in Carlsbad, stick to the main tour. Don't look for the deep sector tours. Don't answer ads in bathroom stalls. And for the love of God, if you hear your mother calling you from the dark, run the other way. I have to go. Mr. Calloway doesn't like tardiness, and I have a feeling tonight is going to be longer than the last one. The note said the lower levels are heating up. I just hope $3,000 is enough to cover the cost of whatever I'm about to lose next. I'm clicking the radio off now. I'm going dark. Wish me luck. Or better yet, wish me silence.